Now, see, that's one reason why sometimes you might want to work directly on the actual server itself. So while this is loading, so unfortunately I might not be able to show you how, the remote access works on this, but what I can do is just work directly here, right? And then say, for example, so what I usually do, right, is if I want the server to run and also I want to make some changes as well at the same time, I usually have two consoles open. So let's start that. So there's console 1 and then the second console. And then let's say the first one, we go npm start. So that the first console is running the app. Yeah, so the app is now running, and we know that there's 4 counters, right? And then this one, what we can do in this console, say, let's go src. Let's see if this is actually connected. No, it hasn't connected yet. So that might be permission issues. Like I might have to look into, seeing what the issue is with SFTP, because sometimes some ports are also blocked, like, and some protocols are blocked. So you might have to figure out, if it allows FTP to be able to access the server. But for now, because the main prerogative is to demonstrate how Git works, now what I'll do is I'd go vim, edit the so let's add another let's just, by default, let's add the defaults for this counter as 1, and we'll save that. No. Oops. Okay, clear. Oops. So see that how I saved it, and then look how it updated, right? Yeah. So now if I go git status, right, it says I modified
app.js.
JS, yeah. So I go git add, or first what I can do is go git diff, right? And what git diff does is it looks at the difference. So see how here it says I deleted a line, right? Because I actually, what I did was I added a comma, right? So when I added a comma, what that's actually doing is it's actually deleting the previous version of that, and then it's creating a new one with the comma, and then it's adding the additional line that I put it in. So yeah, so that's a difference. Git add, git status, right? Now that's staged. Then git commit. added extra counter, right? Right, and then git status. Your branch is ahead of original feature bbdt-7, and let's look at the, let's cross this out. So add extra counters, right? So git push, git status. So it's up to date now. And then if we go back into, let's go back into the code. Where is it? Yeah. Okay, so added extra counter just a minute ago. So yeah. Now, so once I've done that, right? So we know, and we've tested it already because it's currently running, right? And as you can see, there's an extra counter, right? So, and there's additional things you can do as well. So like usually before you merge with a development branch, you'd have your own, test framework that you might have automated tests, or you might have, say, unit tests and all that. You might have a automated test framework that tests the front end. So you might have, functions that tests, button presses, right? But it does it in the background, and it checks to see, oh, is this counter working, right? And if it isn't, then it gives you it sends you a notification saying that this test failed, right? So that's another additional things that you can add to verify that you've actually completed implementing that feature, right? So what I can say is that because I've done this, right, I can say usually sometimes what they have is an extra column saying review before it's done, because you have to review it first. But in this case, it only has done. So what I'll do first is, instead of putting it into done, right, I'll create a merge request, because I'll create a merge request. So pull request. So when you create a pull request, it means that you want someone to verify that your branch, like that your code is working, and then you create create pull request. So bbdt7, and then you want to merge it into development, right? So delete feature. So it says delete feature. You have an option to delete it, or you can leave it, right? So you can have a history of it, but it says delete feature bbdt-7 after the pull request is merged, and then add. So I would probably go. At the moment, I haven't added you onto this team, so I'd probably just there's I can't add myself as the reviewer, but if there was another team member, then I'd probably be able to do that. And you can just add extra details on that. So create pull request, right? Okay, it's taking some time. So yeah, so welcome to the new pull request experience. So someone else that is assigned to review this code will check, oh yeah, you added an extra line of code. I'll review it, add comments to it. I might say, oh, I've tested this and there's a bug on it. Please fix this bug or something like that. And if I, as the reviewer, says, yeah, this satisfies, the requirements, it passes all the tests.
So like they can also like modify that JS file.
Yeah. So so the person who's reviewing the code, you could also modify it at the same time as well, and you can say, oh, you forgot to add comments. In this case, add a comment. It's like maybe you can add it, say here, right? And then you can say you
you can put this line of code, or and use this.
You should have done this, and then you could put a code. You could put a code snippet. So you can put there, and then you can say ID 5, and then value 0, because the default value is 0, right? And then say for example you accidentally put a 1 and you made a typo, and then the person who's reviewing it says, oh, you should have put value 0, then yeah, and then save. And then after that you'd probably just so you can create like a task for it. So create Jira issue to notify the person. But yeah, if everything, just say that you made the changes again, you made a commit, and then you made another pull request, right? And then say the pull request was you were happy with it, and you said, oh yeah, everything's great. Then the person reviewing it says, I approve, right? So when you approve, then you can press merge, right? So when you merge, right? So the source of the code is BBDT-7, and then you're merging it into development, right? So yeah, see how, look at this. See how it's linked to an issue here? So it says BBDT7, add extra counters. So it recognizes that this feature is actually this task. So if you go here, done, and then you merge, look what will happen. So merge pull request, merge feature. Yeah, so yep. And I think we have to refresh this. See, yeah, see, now it's done, right? Because Bitbucket updated the board, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you look back at branches, you still have that feature, right? Because you didn't delete it, but it merged the code together. And see, look at this. So this is where the different versions. So this is how like add extra counter. So it's at 2 branches, development and feature, and then it merged over here, right? Because here, this version of the code was only on BBDT-7, right? But it wasn't on development branch. And then when you merged it, now it's merged, right? So now, say another person may have been working on the other part of the code, and then it would have had a separate branch of this, right? And then what the senior developer would have done was he might have just merged all of the code together at one point, right? Okay, so now that's now that's done. Now let's say that you started to do change color of counters, right? So now let's start that task. So here I'm still in git branch. I'm still on feature BBD T-7, right? Now the thing is, you can jump from feature, as in if you check out feature BBDT-7, right? If you're checking out as a new branch, right, then it will take the existing code of the current branch that you previously were on, and then it will copy it over to the new branch, right? But if you're jumping from, say, feature BBDT-7, right, and then you're gonna go git check out feature -8, right? So you switch branches, but if you look at the code, so let's look at app.js. The code that was on the other branch is no longer on the change colors of counter, right? Because this branch still has the version of development previously, right? So I'll just explain by the diagram in terms of so here it says 4 branches. Feature BBDT8, right, is only up to this version, and it doesn't have the extra counter added in because that's over here. So that means for this to have this version, you have to pull the latest version of development to this, right? But I'll show you something. So I'll do that later. But what I'll do is, instead of pulling this code to the branch here, right, BBDT-8, instead of getting the latest code, what I'll do is I'll still work with the same code, but then I'll merge it later down the track, so you'll see how that works, right? So so let's say to change the color, you're gonna have to change the CSS file, right? So in this case, oh wait, it's actually in components, because how React works is that they have say JavaScript code for each individual module, right? So counter, right, is that object that you want to change. Oh, no, cat counter .jsx. Yeah, so in this case, it looks like HTML code, but it's not actually HTML code, because it's just yeah, it's using the React framework to make it like it's like, it allows you to see it as HTML code, but it's actually its own language, like JSX, right? So but then later down the track, it sort of compiles down to the HTML code anyways, but it uses the JavaScript to do that. Now, okay, so in this case, where do we want to change the color? So button here. So on click. So it's still running in the background, right? So let's say if we look back here, it's changed back to 4, right? But let's go vim counter. So that's the row. Vision button. So I'm just trying to remember the style. Yeah. See if that works. This is probably not the proper way in actually changing the color, but no. So we've got yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, so I'm not a full expert at React, so but I can figure my way around. Yep, so that should work. Blue is not defined. Right, because I didn't put the quotations on it. So, yeah. Oh, so I actually changed this. So, which means might change the color of that yellow 0 and see how it looks. So span style. Blue. And then this should update. Yeah, see, now it's blue. So it's, yeah, pretty ugly, but yeah. Okay, so now that's that. All we can do now is get status, get diff, and you can see the changes. I changed in this line, and I changed it in that line. In this case, here, it didn't delete anything because I didn't add. I didn't add to the syntax of like the line above it. But with this one, because I added to that line, it deleted that line.
Yeah. So whatever line you modified, that's what the git diff shows.
Yeah. So that's the thing, because sometimes what can happen is you're working on code for hours on end, and then you forget which lines did I change or which lines did I update. So you use git diff to remind you that, oh, this was the previous version, and then now that's the new version, right? And it's helpful because sometimes you're bouncing around different files, and you might have multiple nested folders, and then you're like, wait, I've been working on this for 1 hour and I've made a mistake. Now my code is not working, and you need to backtrack, what code did you change? And this is very helpful in that. And it allows you to sort of backtrack when you're trying to, say, debug your code or trying to fix up your code if you made a mistake. Yeah. So now that's working. So git status, git add, git commit, then m. Oh wait, hold on. So and sometimes you can be working on hours as well, and you forget what branch you're on. So just in case, if you commit on the wrong branch, you go git branch, and then you check what current branch you're on, because you don't want to push the code and you start making changes, and then you realize, oh, you're actually working on master, and then you realize, oh, you're going to commit the code to master, and you're gonna stuff everything up because you worked on the wrong branch, right? And that's happened a lot of times. And I sort of had to, people had to sort of fix it, change it, and make workarounds. Yeah. So now we can commit. Changed color of add button and what do you call that? Text area. Yeah. So change color of add button and text area to blue. Okay. Git status, git push, git status. Now let's go back to git, and then let's refresh and see what happens here. So have a look at this. So now when I made that commit, right? So this is the recent commit that I just made. So change color, add button and text area to blue, and then the branches look different because the other version is like over here. So that's the one with the extra, the extra buttons, right? So Yeah, or sorry, the extra counter, that feature branch. And then this one is the different color, right? So now what we want to do is that we want to combine the two features together. So this feature doesn't have the extra counter, and then this feature, the feature branch for the extra counter doesn't have the different color. So the thing is, you don't have to do double the work just to update the this feature branch that has the extra color but doesn't have the extra counter, right? Because all you need to do is just merge the two, and then you get the update of the change in one feature, and then you get the update of the change of the other feature, and then you combine the two updated features, and then it sort of cuts the time in half instead of trying to duplicate the code and then adding it on top, right? So we'll do that process again. So pull request, create a pull request, and then from feature 8. So that was feature 8. From into development, right? So we merge it into development. Then reviewers, let's say that let's say that I'm happy with the code, or let's make a pull request. And also you can add attachments, like you can take a screenshot of, you can take a screenshot of the like the app actually working, so people can see without actually having to deploy the code, because someone that's checking from their phone might not be able to test the app because they don't have the ability to build and run the Node.js app on their on their phone, or they are not able to access the actual app from the live server, or for some reason, right? So sometimes you might want to add photos to show, it's working. Now you create a pull request, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then load comments, and then I add a comment and I say it's a weird choice of color, but I like it, right? Save. And then once everything is okay and it's approved, then you approve it, and then you merge it, and then transition to done, right? And then when you merge it, now this updated, and it's completed. Okay, so I didn't have to drag it to the done. It just automatically said, it's done, because it took the reference of the BBDT8, right? So now it's all done, right? So that means the whole sprint is finished, because we've finished all the tasks that was in the to-do list and in backlog, right? Mm-hmm. So now we can go complete sprint, right? Well, actually, cancel first. We can look at the insight, see. I think that was like a complete sprint. Yeah, so that's completed, and there's no items in the backlog, and now you have sprint 2, right? And you can revise what you need to do for sprint 2, and so on and so forth. So I probably won't go through that because it's probably like sort of redundant anyway. The steps pretty much the same. You would pretty much just you start the sprint and then you check out in that branch. Now there's one thing I might show you. So let's go to commits and let's expand this. So yeah, so here you see how like the diagram progresses where the first feature, the BBDT7 was merged with develop, and then the BBDT8 was merged with develop. So at this point of the timeline, this version of the commit has this version of the code, BBDT7 and BBDT8. Now let's actually test that. So remember, one version of the code, right, has an extra counter, and this version of the code has blue, right? So if we were to go git check out, say, development, right? Yeah. So now look at how, like, now you're going to question, oh, we made these updates, why isn't it up to date, right? Because remember how the version of development on your local device doesn't have the up-to-date commit of the remote repository, right? So if you go git log, right, it's only up to the setting up development branch. But if you go git fetch, because if I did git pull, then it will move the development branch up to the latest development commit, right? But if I did git fetch, this is what will happen. So git log. So now the head development, which is the remote, actually, so it says your branch is behind origin development by 4 commits and can be fast forwarded. So if you go git log, it only shows what is on locally on your local repository. But if you go git log origin, right, actually git log origin development, right? Yeah, so git log origin, right? And you have the commit that merged, BBDT8, that's origin development, and then BBDT8 is here, and then BBDT7 is here. But the thing is, the head development, which is the local, where your repository is on your local device, which commit it's currently at, is over here at setting up development branch. But the latest is up here, which is at when it merged with BBDT8, right? So what we need to do, right, is actually go git pull, right? So if we git pull, that should move head development up towards origin development to the same commit. So git pull. Yeah, and then now git log. So now we're at here, see? And see, now look at the application. It merged the two versions, and now you have an extra counter with the setting 1, but then you also have the up-to-date color, right? So yeah, so the thing is, if you didn't use version control and you were working on the code and one person only had the code and you wanted to sort of work on it at the same time, the other person would have to wait for the first person to finish programming before he can start working on it, and which is very time consuming because only one person can work on it at one time. But if you have two people working on it at one time, then it's relatively easy to make changes on the fly together. Yeah. And then now that we're there, so I think pretty much, yeah, so we've done features. So I'm just gonna leave the font, the changed font, because it's pretty much redundant. So we've made changes to feature branch, we merged feature branch, tested the code, we merged okay, so now we need to merge development branch to the release branch, right? So what that would be is okay, so let's do this. So let's go branches. At the moment, we don't have a release branch, so we have to probably create one. So release, and that release branch is from master, right? So I guess what we can do, let's make release, right? And say, let's say 0.1, right? So create, yeah. So we're making that from the master branch. And then what we want to do is, so let's have a look at how it looks like. Actually, let's get commits. So yeah, at the moment, so what's release on? So release is very behind. What we want to do is merge development, because just say at this point we're happy with the progress of the app, and we want to say, oh yeah, the application is at the point where we want to release it to people, right? So create a pull request, and then create a pull request, go from development to release, and then say yeah, pull request, and these are the list of commits that you're adding to that, you're merging to that release, right? So in this case, yeah, here it's adding an extra counter, and here it's changing. So it shows all the changes, right? From app.js to counter.jsx, right? And you say, I approve this, and then you want to merge it. Yeah. Merge. then it's merged, and then you go commits. So yeah, now there's you see how the git flow is growing and it's progressing. So you've got here, so this would be your development branch right here, and then here are your feature branches, right? And then here is the release branch, and this is so this would be release 0.1, right? And then that's the first release that you're going to release to your customers. And then if you want to make your if you want to make that code publicly available, if this was a public repository, and if you want to make that publicly available on your master branch, and that's what you want people to download, then you can go merge it with master as well. So create pull request, then you take release 0.1, and now you merge it to master. Create pull request. And then maybe.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So the two things that we need to use are Bitbucket and Jira.
We can use it, but because the reason why I'm using it is because Bitbucket integrates with Jira seamlessly, right? But
what are other platforms that integrates with Jira?
Like there's a lot of integrations. Like you don't have to use Bitbucket. You can use GitLab. You can use GitHub. Yeah. So, but the thing is, because Bitbucket is Atlassian and Jira is Atlassian, it has easy integrations. Sometimes it's a bit more complicated integrating different tools with different platforms, because you might need a third party app to integrate the two tools together, or so on and so forth. So sometimes it's easier just to stick with one suite or tool set. Yeah. In this case, this is just an example, but yeah, there's different setups. You can use GitLab, and GitLab itself has its own issue, like its own issue assigning tool as well. So if you're going to use GitLab, you probably wouldn't use Jira, or you still can use Jira with GitLab. So it really depends. Like I think at that point you'd probably plan that out in the planning stage, and because with the SDLC you have the requirements and you have the planning stage, and you figure out what in the planning stage, right? So in the requirement stage, you figure out what features you need, what requirements you have to satisfy, the functional requirements, the non-functional requirements, the quality requirements, the system requirements, interfaces, and all that, right? Now, when you're planning that, that's when you decide, what technologies do we use, what tools do we use, and that's when you have brainstorming sessions or meetings to discuss. We might use this stack or this set of tools because it benefits us with these features, or it benefits us with these functionalities, and I have more experience in this area, or I have more experience using Bitbucket, and so on and so forth, right? So at that point, that's when you choose when to use different technologies. So for example, if you're just making a normal landing page and it's just a simple landing page, then you probably wouldn't choose React. You'd probably choose like a WordPress, like a CMS, like WordPress is a CMS, so content management system, but it's a really easy to use content management system. So you don't have to worry about coding everything from scratch. But if it's like a custom system where the customer wants you to make a custom app that does custom things, then yeah, using something like React, and then that's when you choose the technology stack within the planning stage, right? And then by the time you start actually doing the development, then you would have already chosen what tools that you are going to use, right? Yeah. So okay, so we merge that release into the master. And let's see. Okay, so all branches, release. Yeah, so it looks the same, right? But yeah, here's the release 0.1. And the reason why it doesn't look any different because release 0.1 is the same as master, right? So they both have the same version of the code. So if you go, for example, master. Oh, actually, sorry. The master itself, right, doesn't have the up-to-date code. So what you'll probably need to do, because the it's actually release has the version of the latest of development, but the master doesn't have the latest of development. So what you'll need to do is you probably have to do so I got distracted a bit, but yeah, there's still a pull request. So we haven't actually, done the pull request of release 0.1 yet. So it's still not up to date. Sorry. So the master is still not up to date to release 0.1. So what we have to do is we approve it and then we merge it. But let's just say when we have that third task where it's like, okay, what's the third task that we had for this? So the third task or the other feature was change font of counters. So what we could do is, because that's the second sprint, the first sprint, let's say that the first sprint was for the release 0.1, and then the second sprint can be for release 0.2, and that release 0.2 can have this new feature in it, the change font of counters, right? And then now, you merge it, and then merge. And then now we should see it up to date. And so go back into master. Master is now, up to date with the release. Okay, so I think that's mostly it. And then, what you could do is deploy on another machine. So what I could do, right, is go to DigitalOcean, set up another machine, and then deploy it on another machine. But I'm not going to do that because, it's pretty much the same. You just create another instance and then set up Node.js, set up your repository again, pull the code, and then you just initialize the project, and then you start the project, and then as long as if it's checked out on the latest commit, then you should have the latest version, and that's basically how you deploy it. So essentially, that's basically how you go from the requirements to all the way to deploying on the machine at a basic level. But depending on how your project is set up, there's more complications or more more technicalities once you add extra things to this.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and then after that, there's a maintenance as well. So you'd probably have plugins like health checks, plugins to
schedulers.
Schedulers, health checks, things to check the health of the server, health of the code, and then it gives you feedback. And then if there's something that crashes or something like that, it gives you a notification. And then and then also you have like you might have a ticketing system where your customers report bugs on the software, and then they issue a ticket, and then they you have to ask them, oh, can you reproduce the issue, and then take a screenshot and all that, and then you're going to have to reproduce the issue on your end and see, oh yeah, this is a bug, and then you create it as like a, for example, going back to that diagram, that's the other branch that I haven't really talked about. So we talked about feature branches, we talked about development branch, and then release branch and master. Now there's a hotfixes branch, right? So what is a hotfixes branch? So that's when, say, you made a release, right? And then your customer reports a bug, and then they send in like a bug ticket, and they say, oh, this isn't working properly on a mobile device, or like the counter isn't properly sized on my Samsung phone, right? So when you reproduce that, then you say, yeah, this is a issue. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to create a another hotfix, right? Just like you're going to have to pull the code from master, and then you're going to have to make the changes on the spot, right? And then test the changes, and then if it works, then you merge it back into the master, right? And then you have to log that bug fix, Yeah. So the reason why you do that, so you up-to-date the change of the master. So you update the master version with the latest fix, right? And then when you've done that, you also merge that change into your development branch, because other developers might currently be making additional changes to the branch, and then you add the bug fix along with their changes, so that current developers don't have to, or the developers that are creating features for the platform, they don't have to worry about fixing the bug. Like someone else fixes the bug, and then they merge the bug fixes with the changes, and then the other people that are working on the additional features, when they merge their coding, because the bug fix is merged with their changes, it's automatically fixed, Yeah, and then so that's essentially the workflow. And there's a lot of documentation and a lot of theoretical stuff that you can find online to get a better grasp of it. Yeah. So what are your thoughts, Ro?
I think you've explained every bit of every bit of the SDLC, and I've learned a lot from the feasibility study to the deployment. It's very helpful.
So I think next time, because there's probably not going to be enough time, but next time I'll probably get you to do a trial run, and I'll probably create a practice project, and then I'll be the person who reviews the pull request. So you can create the pull request, and then I can just say, oh, can you fix this up, or can you fix that up, and then that way we can sort of practice merging, practice working on feature branches.
Or you can make like like a module, like step by step from the requirements gathering to deployment and to the maintenance, like
so what I'm planning to do is
we're gonna make a scenario where someone's a client, someone's the developer, someone's the project manager, so we'll know what are the roles of every person in the development.
And so I'll probably run a couple more tutorial sessions, but what I'll do is I'll probably like record individual videos for them. So I'll make a requirements collection and analysis video, a feasibility study, design, and then coding, and then testing, and then installation, deployment, and maintenance. Because really, this video that we're recording now is sort of like a high level of it from start to finish. But if you break it down in terms of the requirements, then you'd probably spend more time in the requirements collection, because you have to sort of document everything. You have to go back and forth with the clients. You have to approve things with the clients, and so on and so forth. And then with a feasibility study, you would have to do research, look up studies, look up, papers, look up. So for example, if you're creating something new, and then you're trying to figure out, has this been done before? You're going to have to look at, papers that have been published on this. You have to look at, who's actually done this before and see how, like, what methods that they use. So you might end up, using that as inspiration, or figuring out what technologies did they use, and so on and so forth. Because there's no point of reinventing the wheel if something already exists out there, right? And then you have like design, and then coding, and then design as well is like, you've got separate departments or separate sections for that. You've got like the front end design, you've got like the back end design, you've got the database, structure and design, and the ERDs, and and also the APIs. How do you test the APIs? What frameworks are going to use to test? And also you're going to have to create a test document. How are you planning to test the code? Are you going to do automation testing? Are you going to do integration testing? How are you going to how are you going to test the user acceptance testing? So like, how are you going to verify metrics in terms of the definition of done? So when you're scraping things out, you're going to figure out, what is the definition of completing this requirement, right? So what does it need to pass? So for example, in the running app, right, the metric would be, the metric of this to test this app would be, the buttons are functioning. You could count up to, say, 20, but in this case it can count up to more than 20. And then the other metric would be, it has to be a color blue, right? So those are testable metrics, because you can test,
once it meets a certain number, it changes the color,
Yeah, so you're gonna have, say, for example, if you have like state machine, and it has this the code, or the way that the program works has to follow a certain logic, then you have to have tests for that. Like if I press this button, it doesn't do this, or if I press that button, doesn't do that. And then you have pass or fail scenarios, right?
Yeah.
So you have to document that fairly well, so that you can sort of, and you also test edge cases, because sometimes the code can actually work. And for example, if you have like multi-threaded applications or something like that, and then sometimes the code can actually work in ideal conditions, but then when you test it on, when you test it on edge cases, then it ends up not working, because for that moment it just crashes the whole thing, or it goes beyond the limit. So you didn't actually have you didn't limit the inputs that can go in within the function. So for example, if you're testing a function, you didn't limit the the edge cases, right? Because sometimes you have to put limits on the edge cases. And then after that, then you do like the installation. You'd have to create documentation for installation. How do you deploy it? How does a user download the code and install on their device? So you're going to have to document that, and then you're going to have to document how to deploy it and the maintenance and all that, so that you could pass it on to other developers. And there's probably more to this as well. There's probably different techniques in addition, right? But this is sort of like mostly the way things are developed nowadays. Mostly comes down to the SDLC and and there's like, you know, different methodologies. Like there's Scrum, there's, you know, there's the spiral method, there's there's different types of methodologies in how to develop things. But that's when you choose your methodology of development during when you're planning, and really what dictates that is when you're collecting requirements, you're trying to figure out, oh, what's the scope of this project, how big is this project, you know, how complex is this project. If it's simple, then we probably don't even need, you know, agile, right? But if it's really, really complicated and there's a lot of you know, requirements, and it keeps updating, and it's a dynamic project, and so on and so forth, then yeah, you're gonna need to use agile. If it's like some sort of like really risky project where it has to be like the requirements have to be set at the very beginning, and you can't have the scope changing throughout the project, then yeah, you'd probably use waterfall, because but the thing is, when you're planning out the requirements, you're going to probably spend months just to figure out, you know, the exact requirements that the system needs. Sometimes some projects even spend like, you know, a whole year just trying to figure out what the requirements are for the project, and then the next year you start developing that project, you know. So it really, yeah, so that's when it really depends on the project that you're doing. Yeah. Okay, I think that's about it. That was a pretty long tutorial.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think it'll be helpful for everyone else once I upload this to YouTube. And I'll probably edit it as well, like get it edited, as in, you know, make sure that the private information is blurred out and all that. But yeah, hopefully you guys find this, you know, useful as well, like those who are watching this on YouTube. And yeah, maybe give us suggestions of what you think we should, you know, we should do in the future, what tutorials we should do. And if you have any comments, if you have any comments about, you know, the way I'm teaching, and any criticisms or any advice or anything, then put it down in the comments below, and we'd much appreciate that. Okay, see you guys. I'll see you in the next video.